The sun hung low over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, casting a golden glow across the 5 acres of land Ethan Carter had inherited from his grandmother, Evelyn. It was a quiet parcel, dotted with ancient oaks, and a modest cabin she'd built with her own hands decades ago, a sanctuary away from the clamor of the neighboring Pinewood Heights, a sprawling, gated community of manicured lawns and McMansions. Ethan had always cherished the solitude of the place, a refuge from his hectic life as a freelance journalist. But that morning, as he sipped his coffee on the porch, the peace shattered like glass under a hammer. A low rumble shook the ground, VY bratting through his boots. He squinted across the field and nearly dropped his mug. A hulking drilling rig lumbered into VYEW, its steel frame glinting menacingly in the dawn light. 3 men in hard hats followed, 2 measuring the ground with tapes, the third slashing bright orange spray paint across the grass. Ethan's grass. His land. Strangers were trespassing as casually as if they owned the place. "Hey," he shouted, storming toward them, his voice cutting through the crisp air. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The tallest worker, a wiry man with a sunburned neck, glanced up, unfazed. "Setting up a well, sir." "Got orders." "A well? On my land? Who authorized this?" Ethan's pulse quickened as he scanned the equipment pipes, a generator, a stack of permits pinned under a clipboard. The worker fished a crumpled paper from his pocket and thrust it at Ethan. "Pinewood Heights, HOA. All the paperwork's right here." Ethan snatched it, his eyes darting over the text. There it was, an official-looking permit, complete with the HOA's embossed logo, granting permission to drill water wells along the eastern boundary of his property. His grandmother had never joined the HOA land, predated their development by decades. This had to be a mistake. "I never signed off on this," he snapped, show VYing the paperback. "Pack up and get off my property. Now." The worker shrugged, scratching his stubble. "Not my call, buddy. Take it up with the HOA. I just drill where they point." He pulled out his phone. "I'll call the president. She'll sort it." 20 minutes later, a sleek silver BMW rolled up to Ethan's rickety gate. A woman stepped out mid-40s, sharp cheekbones, hair pulled into a flawless chignon. She wore a tailored blazer and heels that clicked with authority on the gravel. "Mr. Carter," she said coolly, not offering a hand. "I'm Victoria Langston, president of Pinewood Heights Homeowners Association. I hear there's a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Ethan shot back, crossing his arms. "Your crew's trespassing. I want them gone." Victoria's lips curved into a smile that didn't touch her icy blue eyes. "When your grandmother sold the adjacent parcel to our developers 15 years ago, she signed an easement agreement. In water emergencies, the HOA has rights to access the aquifer beneath your land. We're in a drought, Mr. Carter. Surely you've noticed." Ethan frowned, a knot tightening in his gut. "I've never heard of any easement. My well's fine. There's no emergency." She produced another document, this one yellowed with age, and pointed to Evelyn's looping signature at the bottom. "One emergency well is permitted under Section 4, Paragraph 2. It's all legal." He scanned the fine print. She was right, one well, for emergencies only. But then he noticed the orange markers scattered across his field like a rash. "This says one well," he said, jabbing a finger at the page. "Not a dozen." Victoria waved a dismissive hand. "The drought's worsened. Our attorneys have interpreted the agreement's intent to allow multiple wells in extreme circumstances. Feel free to call them." She turned to leave, her tone final. "We'll proceed as planned. The community needs water." Ethan watched her drive off, fury simmering in his chest. That night, the drilling didn't stop. Floodlights bathed his field in a harsh glow, and the relentless grind of machinery kept him awake. By morning, one well was complete, and they'd started on second. He called the county water office, his voice tight with suspicion. "Any declared emergencies?" The clerk sounded puzzled. "No, sir. We're a level 1 conservation stage, voluntary measures only. No crisis." Ethan's jaw clenched. Something was rotten. He grabbed his keys and drove into Pinewood Heights. For a neighborhood supposedly parched, it looked like an oasis. Sprinklers danced over emerald lawns, and a maintenance crew was filling the community pool. At the entrance, a glossy sign caught his eye. Coming soon, Pinewood Heights Luxury Springs and Resident Lagoon. He snapped a photo, his blood running cold. This wasn't about Sir V.Y. Val. They were stealing his water for a dam resort. Back home, the drilling had escalated 3 teams now, tearing up his grandmother's flower beds and snapping the branches of her prized cherry trees. A neighbor, Tom Grayson, leaned against Ethan's mailbox, watching the chaos. "Big project, huh?" Tom said, chewing a toothpick. "You know about this?" Ethan asked, narrowing his eyes. Tom nodded. Victoria pitched it at the last meeting. Said they tapped the aquifer for new amenities. Property values will skyrocket with that lagoon. She told me it was an emergency. Ethan growled. Tom chuckled darkly. Emergency for their wallets. Maybe. My sister's on the planning committee. They've been dreaming this up for a year. Ethan stormed inside and dialed a lawyer. Abigail Torres, a sharp-witted attorney with a reputation for taking on bullies, met him that afternoon. She pored over the easement and the HOA's permit. "They're overstepping," she said, tapping her pen. "One well. Emergencies only. We can file for an injunction, but it'll take to me a week, maybe 2. Document everything, photos, conversations, all of it. By dusk, for wells dotted his land, and pipes snaked across the field, not toward Pinewood Heights, but to an empty lot on the west side." Ethan followed the trail, his boots sinking into the churned-up soil. There, hidden behind a copse of trees, was a sign, "Future site of Willow Plaza Shopping Center." Survey stakes marked the ground, and a water tanker sat parked nearby, its hose connected to one of his wells. The logo read Horizon Development. He snapped photos, his hands trembling. They weren't just feeding a neighborhood, they were selling his water to a commercial empire. That night, an envelope slid under his door HOA letterhead, listing violations on his property, unkempt grass, an illegal shed, fines in the thousands. A clear message: back off or pay. Ethan stared at the drilling rigs glowing in the dark, their shadows stretching like claws over his land. This was war. At dawn, Victoria herself arrived, clipboard in hand, inspecting the 5th well's progress. She waved at him with mock cheer, her audacity twisting the knife deeper. Ethan called a friend, Jake, a construction contractor with a VY Elme Care grin. "I need a cement mixer. Today. Patio project." Jake teased. "Something like that." Ethan muttered, "How much concrete to fill a 10-inch, 50-foot shaft?" Jake whistled. "You're talking serious volume. What's cooking, man? Just get me the mixer." Ethan hit 3 hardware stores in neighboring towns, buying quick-set concrete in cash, keeping his purchases scattered. By midnight, with the crews gone and a lone security guard dozing in his truck, Ethan wheeled the mixer to the first well. He mixed the concrete thick, tossing in scrap metal old bolts. Rusted pepesto make it a nightmare to drill through. The gray sludge gurgled down the shaft, swallowing the HOA's plans inch by inch. By sunrise, the first well was a solid tomb. He covered his tracks and waited. For 2 nights, he repeated the sabotage, sealing 3 wells under the cover of darkness. On the 4th morning, Victoria pounded on his door, flanked by 2 men in suits. "We need to talk," she barked, VYing past him. "Our crews say the wells are sabotaged, filled with concrete. This stops now." Ethan leaned against the wall, feigning ignorance. "That's rough, but I didn't VYT you here. Those wells violate the easement." One suit stepped forward, his voice smooth as oil. "I'm Daniel Pierce, HOA counsel. This sabotage has cost us due la $75,000. We'll add it to your fines." The other man flashed a badge. "Detective Ryan Holt. Vandalism like this is a felony, Mr. Carter." Ethan didn't flinch. "Funny you mentioned felonies." He pulled out his phone, displaying photos of the pipes leading to Willow Plaza. "Care to explain why emergency wells are feeding them all? The county says there's no drought. I've got recordings to Victoria admitting she's exceeding the easement." "A bluff," but her paling face told him it landed. Daniel whispered to Victoria, who hissed, "We can compromise. Dula 10,000 to drop this." "I'm not for sale," Ethan said. "My lawyer's filing an injunction." The water board's sniffing around too. Detective Holt scribbled in his notebook. "I'll need to verify these claims before pursuing vandalism charges." Victoria stormed out, her entourage trailing behind. That afternoon, Ethan caught a worker photographing his garage where the mixer sat. Later, an unmarked sedan cruised past his house too slow to be casual. Abigail called with an update. "The judge will hear us next week, but the HOA's got cronies on the zoning board. Permits that should take months? They got them in days. We need more dirt." Ethan paced his field, watching a Horizon Development tanker siphon water from a fourth well. He tailed it to the mall's site, where workers unloaded it into storage tanks. He sent Abigail the photos. "This could crack it open," she said. "I'm looping in the EPA." Victoria returned that evening, her smile brittle. "Dula 15,000, and we waive the fines." "Final offer." "Keep your money," Ethan said. "You've got no leverage." Her eyes hardened. "This project's too big to fail. Cross us, and you'll regret it." "A threat?" he asked, stepping closer. "A fact," she snapped, peeling out in a spray of gravel. That night, flashlights swept his yardarm guards now patrolled the wells. Ethan's sabotage window had closed. He needed new play. At 3 a.m., inspiration struck. He called Jake again. Another mixer. No questions. By dawn, Jake delivered, and Ethan to VY said a bolder plan. He drove to scattered stores, buying more concrete, then enlisted Tom's teenage son, Lucas, a tech-savvy kid with a drone. "Fly this over the mall site," Ethan said. "Give me footage." Lucas returned with gold. Aerial shots of tankers MOVYing water. Horizon logos everywhere. Ethan uploaded the VY Deo anonymously to X, tagging local news. By noon, the Willow water scandal was trending. Reporters swarmed his porch. Abigail called, breathless. "The EPA's raiding the HOA office. Your VY Deo lit a fire." The next day, Victoria and Daniel confronted him, flanked by a county official. "Cease your stunts," she demanded as crews drilled a sixth well. Ethan handed the official his folder easement, photos, drone stills. "They've got no permits for this aquifer grab. Check the pipes." The official's face darkened. "This isn't an HOA matter anymore. Drilling without county approval's illegal." A police cruiser arrived, and an officer escorted Victoria away as she shrieked about lawsuits. Weeks later, the scandal broke wide open. The news revealed Victoria's board had faked the drought, pocketing millions from Horizon while planning a private spa retreat as a decoy. Criminal charges followed: fraud, embezzlement, environmental violations. Pinewood Heights HOA dissolved, its assets frozen. One crisp Saturday, a delegation of neighbors arrived, led by Clara Evans, a soft-spoken retiree. "We're not here to fight," she said. "We want to fix this." Their proposal: turn Ethan's scarred-back acres into a public preserve, with his ownership intact VY, a conservation easement. The cemented wells would stay monuments to greed's defeat. Months later, volunteers planted trees around the capped shafts, each marked with a plaque telling the story. Clara showed Ethan plans for an education center named after Evelyn. "Your stand saved our aquifer," she said. "This is our thank you." As the preserve opened, Ethan stood by the largest well cap, accepting a ceremonial key from the mayor. "One person's fight can rewrite a community's story," the mayor said. Neighbors cheer not all, but enough. DRIVYing past, Victoria's glare met Ethan's calm gaze one last time before she vanished from Willow Creek, a felon stripped of power. The land was his again, but now it was theirs too, a shared legacy born from concrete and courage. Ethan smiled, knowing Evelyn would have approved. Sometimes you had to bury the past to build something better. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.